After 4 grueling hours dismantling the worst example of the gaming community in my last interrogation review, I want to take some time here to look at one of the best examples of the gaming community, which will also satisfy the oldest open recommendation from one of my dearest subscribers, and look at Red Dead Redemption 2, the game that is almost as good as a good book. I kind of scoffed at the idea when it was recommended a couple years ago, and it was recommended something as a joke by the subscriber because with this channel's quote unquote technology, who would want to see the review of a video game with no actual gameplay or even any footage from the game itself? And here we are about 55 videos later, and I have the answer to that, which is smart people. So for everyone still listening, it is somewhat unfair to compare games to books, which is the angle I'm about to take, because I have seen enough from gamers who have kind of derided literature when talking about how great games are. And I feel the need to be in defense of literature because every time they say an example of why the game is so great, I will always say, well, actually, I think that was done better in the book, in this book. What about this book? Like, for example, games like The Shadow of Colossus or an Elden Ring, I've heard gamers say, this is what games do much better than any other entertainment, is the way they capture the sense of scale, because those games have these mammoth skyscraper type enemies that you have to defeat in battle. And those are extremely well done senses of scale for video games. However, none of them, in my opinion, has come anywhere close to capturing the sense of scale that was put in my imagination by Arthur C. Clarke in his 1973 science fiction novel, Rendezvous with Rama. It has to do with the scene where a human has first contact with the aliens and goes on their ship. And I hate giving away spoilers to books, so I won't give you any more details than that. But the sense of scale that was put in my imagination by that first contact is beyond anything that I've seen in a video game limited by technology. That's the thing that I always come to, is that your imagination is bigger than the universe. And video games are limited to a 2-dimensional or sometimes 3-dimensional kind of canned world. They have borders, and there's no borders to your imagination. Another one was this, I think it was called Scorpio. It's a game where the gamer that was playing it said, this is what games do better than any other entertainment, is they can use sound to tell a story. And Scorpio, if that was the name, it did use sounds to capture the story very well. I enjoyed it. However, the effect was not as powerful as the use of sound in F. Paul Wilson's 1981 horror novel, The Keep. Now, there's no actual audio going into your ear as you're reading a book, obviously, so in a way that was true, that the video game used the sound to tell the story more than the book. However, the memory of the sound that is described, the way it's revealed, how the different people in the Keep novel react to it, and then 100 or so pages later, when it's finally revealed what was causing the sound all along, was way more powerful than anything I've come across in a game, even when the games do it well, because it's limited by technology in the video game, whereas well-written literature can put these images in your head as if they're memories. It can introduce you to people as if you've known them in your life, if done well. And if you're open to allowing that experience for yourself, because you can just go into it with a grudge chip on your shoulder. Oh, I don't like it. Ugh. Close the book. Or tap it or swipe it away in today's age. So Red Dead Redemption 2 is what I was getting to, is a game where I had the most difficult time saying that, oh, this did that thing well, but It was done better in blank book. It was hardest for me to do that with Red Dead Redemption 2. Like, for example, the CGI, very well done. I'm comparing technology to imagination. There's a scene in Red Dead Redemption 2 where driving your horse, do you drive a horse or ride a horse? Riding your horse into a field of tall grass with the setting sun in the background. And as the foreground grass moves across the background sun, the orange glow of the setting sun waxes and wanes. It's a glow. And, to give these gaming people credit, you start off with a blank piece of paper. So they had to come up with the idea, if a player just happens to be coming across a wet field of tall grass in front of a sun on the horizon, how should that look? So they had to come up with the idea that that would be beautiful, not knowing if anyone would ever even notice it. They had to put it in the game and execute it very well. And it's beautiful. When I saw that, I was like, Jesus, that's good CGI right there. That's as good as real life. Have I seen something that good? Have I seen an image that beautiful in a game? And it actually took me a while to say, well, yeah, there was the color purple, the way Alice Walker describes the field with the flowers in it. That's a more meaningful use. But then again, that's apples to oranges. The fact that I had to go that far to one of the best, most meaningful examples of beautiful imagery in a book, to compare it to Red Dead Redemption 2, instead of just having an easy blowout victory of literature over the video game, I had to go to the most extreme examples for a comparison. And when you get to that level of achievement, it's really apples to oranges, and you can't really say one's better than the other. But the fact that they pulled that off so wonderfully that I was questioning whether or not a book had done something like that better is really an achievement. Also, the storytelling, it's become more propagated in the last decade or so. Choice-based storytelling games, they really capture the way the human mind works. And I use this example for my kids when I'm asking them about choices they've made and if they could have made a better choice. The way that your brain gives you all of these choices based on the information that goes into it. It gives you every choice it can come up with, and you pick the one that determines the type of person you are and the path that you want to go on. I've made the reference to that in a couple of the true crime reviews I've done, if you saw those. Your brain takes in all the information, gives you multiple choices, and you pick which one you go, and that determines the type of person you are and the life you want to leave. I guess you're leaving it eventually, so what kind of life are you leaving behind? But anyway, Red Dead Redemption 2, it's not the best example of choice-based storytelling in a game. I would say David Cage has done the best examples that I've come across. What's it called? Heavy Rain, Detroit Become Human, and I think it was Life is Strange, where the girl has the imaginary friend that has supernatural influence on her life. So those are three great examples from David Cage of choice-based storytelling in a game. And Red Dead Redemption 2 does it well too, because it has an honor bar where all of your little choices, hundreds of them across the game, maybe thousands, your honor bar goes towards honorable or dishonorable with every little choice you make. And how close you are to one extreme or the other determines Arthur Morgan, the main character's ultimate outcome. And of course, I went to the extreme dishonorable, as I always do, trying to test the borders of the video game, which I've always done. I like to see what it's capable of by doing everything possible. And I got the most dishonorable and turned poor Arthur Morgan into Swiss cheese at the end of my playthrough. But there are 2 or 3 other outcomes you can have for your main character in Red Dead Redemption 2. So it's not as various as the David Cage choice-based storytelling games. But it's still interesting to see your honor bar go up and down, and that can reflect who you are in your life, because you could have a bad day and do dishonorable things and then recover from them in the days that follow in your real life. So that's been a valuable thing that I've been able to use, like when I'm talking to my kids. And something that video games do very well, and it's another thing where I had to question, do books do this as well? And of course, yeah, they do. It's apples to oranges again, because they both do them brilliantly. Books do it because reading a narrative proceeds at a leisurely pace where you have the time kind of to think different paths where this story is going to go. What's this person going to do here? What's this person going to do in that narrative? What's that person going to do? How are they going to come together at different points? That's one of the reasons why, other than just being cheap, that so many people become writers, is because you read a book and just the act of going through the story and having the time and the pace to come up with your own different branches of where the story can go, it inspires people to write their own stories. So in a way, every person who reads a book is coming up with their own choice-based video game. Or it's really happened in the reverse, because people were, when they were reading books in the past, they were really playing their own choice-based video game by determining and deciding and predicting which way these characters and stories were going to go. And of course, in a first or third person narrative, they only go one way, but your imagination takes them in all these different ways. And that's one of the great joys of reading, is you get all these red herrings where, as in the other entertainments, they're again limited by technology. You can only have so many in an hour and a half movie, or even if you binge watch a TV show that's tens of hours long, those come closer too, much like a game that's 40 hours long. They and the TV shows that are 40 hours long that you can binge watch nowadays because of streaming services, they equal to the point where it's just apples and oranges, books, in the way that they are able to get your imagination working. Your mind percolates from trying to figure out what's going on and all the different ways it can go. Characters. There are so many different characters in Red Dead Redemption 2 that I was thinking, do books equal this? Because there are maybe hundreds of different NPCs, as they're called, non-playable characters. And all across the map, you have this open world that you can run through, walk through, ride your horse through, and in all different areas of this world of Red Dead Redemption 2, you run into different characters and get involved in their little side stories. And you branch off in that way, but then you come back to your main story after you're done. And that's something that, again, literature has always done very well, because different characters can just be referenced. You might have a dozen or a few dozen main characters that you follow, but they will remember people in the past. They will be thinking about people in the future that they're going to have to deal with later on. They will be thinking about people in the background, that other characters in the story. So you can read through the story with hundreds of characters in mind, much like you can now play a game and happenstance come across hundreds of characters. Game of Thrones, better known in the literary world as A Song of Ice and Fire, that series. I think it's hundreds, maybe over 1,000 named characters for that very reason. There's a couple dozen main characters that you follow from their point of view, but each one of them has dozens of characters in their mind that they're thinking of and they carry with them. They're remembering or referencing or thinking about or preparing for. So, yeah, in all those ways, it was very hard for me to just say, yeah, this video game was good, but the book did it better. I actually had to do some work to come up with a comparison, and that's why this video game, Red Dead Redemption 2, one of the best examples of gaming, is almost as good as good books. So it's nowhere near as good as my book, Children of the Light. The link to my Patreon page, where it's available in ebook form, is in the description. So happy reading, happy trails, and happy gaming.